Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Top Talk webinar session. Hi, Deborah. I know I have you in the wings. How you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. So I'm very much looking forward to you not only just sharing your work with our members, but and I forgot in all the prelim, I forgot that obviously you're an ex-Academy apprentice. So over chatting, so yeah, so you spent, what, God, it was a year with us. It seems like ages ago now, but so yeah. So if anybody's interested, obviously I'll share that links with you. But you can see Deborah's journey with us. So it was fashion we did, wasn't it? Fashion. You and Tom did
It
fashion
was.
photography with us for a whole year. So yeah, massive series of film on there. And I completely forgot about that, Deb. That's really bad of me. Sorry. So thank you so much for agreeing to join us tonight. And obviously the boys have shot some film with you already, as I just mentioned earlier. So I've got your social media links on the screen at the moment, but I'll be sharing those with the attendees also. So Deb, I know you're going to tell everybody about yourself as part of your presentation. Okay, so we've got the screen up, Deb, so they can all see it very clearly. So if you just ask me to move the slides on, and then we'll go from there.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So hi everyone. My name's Deborah. I'm a specialist hair and makeup photographer, and I do quite a lot of the main part of my work is working in colleges and doing portfolios for students. Now, I started my love of photography, and I will say love because it definitely is that, when I was in my teens and I saw a film which you can see on the screen called The Third Man. I don't know whether anybody's seen it, but it is an absolutely stunning film, lighting-wise, composition-wise, and it just really sort of set off, for me, I wanted to find out more about lighting, and that's my passion. From there, I studied photographers. I didn't study photography formally until 2002, although I studied photographers in books, high-end fashion magazines, and really immersed myself in beautiful images. I always had a camera with me. I used to do a lot of band photography, as my dad had a recording studio, so it kind of made sense. And then I found I was really attracted more to the sort of fashion, beauty, hair side of things. I've put a list of all the people that inspire me, and you can see that on the slide at the moment. What I found because I have a law degree, which I don't do anything with, I enjoyed the journey, but photography really, really is my passion, and it's the sort of thing that I never watch the clock. So obviously it is something that I'm really passionate about, and I love every minute of what I do, which is great. So as you can see on the screen at the moment, my main work is makeup colleges, hair colleges, fashion colleges, dance schools, portraits and makeovers. I'm not doing so many portraits at the moment just because our studio is very much in the sort of building stage. If you see some of the videos that we've been putting together, you'll see how we're using it at the moment, which is more of a sort of setting up props for shoots for the colleges. So that's me. I started working with the colleges. There was a mortgage advisor and a client that I'd done actually a dog portrait for, and they were talking about working together, and the lady at the college was looking for a female photographer. She'd had a male photographer in the past, and she really desperately wanted a female photographer because there's a lot of body art and that sort of thing. And they put me in touch. So strangely, going from a dog portrait, I don't know how that works out, but it did work out. But I really do love it, and I'm glad that they gave me the opportunity to show that it was something that I could do. The basic kit that I use is obviously a camera lens. I've listed a little bit later in the presentation the lenses that I would use. Backgrounds, you can get away with 3 heads. I tend to take more. I do favour the beauty dish for a lot of the work that I do. I do use a softbox, an umbrella very, very rarely, and then obviously barn doors, silver dish, strip back. Very important to the kind of work that I do, especially if I'm doing hair work, and a boom stand again for lighting the hair. That's what I tend to use it for. Standard lighting stands as well, and then reflectors. And then if we move on to the next one. Okay, so these would be the cameras and lenses that I'm using at the moment. So I've still use the 5D Mark II as my main camera. I really like that camera. It may get upgraded at some point in the future. Well, it probably will. But it's a great camera for what I'm doing. And I've listed the type of lenses that I'd use and what I'd use them for. I've recently started using the 100mm macro f2.8, and it's absolutely beautiful. Some of the images that we use to publish, to show the course, they're taken on the macro, and yeah, it is a beautiful, beautiful lens. Okay, so if we move on to the next one. When I started, which was a few years ago now, doing the colleges, I did start with the standard background support system. But what I found that it can be very, very costly with paper. Obviously, if people are doing body art or generally things that they have on their shoes, which you might not want in. So I was finding that it was very, very costly. So if we flick onto the next slide. What I have started using now for the majority of my work is the Elastilite highlight. It's really easy to assemble. It's easy to disassemble once you've had some practice. I don't know whether the video is still on, Jay, but I learnt on a video that Mark had put together how to put it back together afterwards. So,
it's still there, can be found on the
Academy. It's really good. I wouldn't want to tackle it without, if you've not used one before, because you do need to know how to put it back in its bag. It's a little bit like a collapsible tent. It's really easy to clean, even the train, and I do have a train. I've not put a picture of the white train. There is a white train that just velcros on, and the best thing that I've found personally is Dr. Power Magic Eraser. It's amazing. It's just like a sort of micro eraser. Look it up. It's really cheap, but it does work, and it gets off even the toughest shoe scuffs, body art, makeup, everything. It's really good. So it's just saving you money in terms of not using paper backgrounds. So if you wanted to invest, I'd say that would be a sound investment. One of the things that I've started using recently is the Elastilite Urban Background range. Now, we have videoed some of these where we've been at the college, and they are absolutely superb. They just work. Just some of the colleges, we don't go on location, but for them it does feel that they are on location. Other colleges either come to me or we go on location, but there's one in particular that I tend to go into them all the time. So it just gives them a bit of variety in the portfolio, because they don't just want a white background, grey background, black background, or just gelled shots. They want something a little bit different that fits in with their theme. So if we move on to the next one.
Just going to jump in, Deb, sorry. Somebody's asked, which is the size of highlight do you prefer? Is it the biggest one?
No, because it doesn't always fit in the rooms. I do have the biggest one, but I tend to use, is it the 6 foot by 7 foot? It's not the biggest, it's the next size down. And I just find, because sometimes you are working in quite tight spaces, and quite a few of the colleges, certainly if they're working in like a salon environment, they have lowered ceilings. So I would definitely, I have got both, but I rarely take the big one out with me just because I can't fit it in.
Do you find then that most of the time you're shooting the sort of 3/4 anyway, rather than the full length?
Yeah. We do some full length, and that's obviously the train comes in for that, but I would say that the bottle top train is probably better for full length than the train, because obviously it's not as illuminated as the background, so it's going to be a bit of an editing nightmare. So I tend to shoot sort of to probably mid-calf, and that would be the maximum.
Brilliant.
Really, unless I'm shooting with the bottle tops.
Excellent. Back to you, Liv.
Yeah. Now, this very much depends on whether you're working on your own or working with an assistant. I used to have an assistant. She was amazing. She had a baby. Now she's not my assistant. So what I found is the triflecta, the picture on the left, is the best option because you can use either all three, or you can just use the one and fold the other arms down, and it's just brilliant. You're not having to ask the model to hold it because then they're able to pose a lot easier. So it just works. It's really, really good. But again, it would be up to you. I would say it would be a very good investment, and you'll certainly get your money back on it. Okay, so next slide. Okay, right. I have put, this is obviously one of the more, well, it's the Flashmate. The Flashmeter that I use is actually, it's been discontinued. It is really, really good, but you can use it for ambient light and studio light, but this would be great starting just doing studio work. For the type of work that I do, you do have to meter all the time. You'll probably meter per student, and you might re-meter within the shoot because you'll be changing the lighting conditions within their allotted time. So I couldn't do what I do without a light meter. I need to know that it's right, because you don't want to be spending too much time editing, because students don't have that much money, so the pay isn't that great. So you don't want to be spending all the time editing. You need to shoot it absolutely right in camera. Obviously I put a trigger in. I use Elinchrom products, but you could use other triggers. I wouldn't use a trailing wire, just because health and safety, working in a college environment, obviously triggers are going to be much better for you.
And just for the Elinchrom triggers are so cheap for the sets now, Deb. It just makes perfect sense. Yeah, you don't have to use that. You can use them in conjunction with other lighting. You don't have to just use the Elinchrom lighting. So brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Now I've just put a few different lighting modifiers. The snoot I would definitely use quite a lot. Further on in the presentation I'll show you some of the special effects makeup, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Just a normal reflector dish, it's just very useful. Again, probably use it more for special effects than I would for beauty. I've added a grid in there. You can get grids for the beauty dish, you can get grids obviously just for the reflector, but it's great just to channel the light in, and again we can talk about that a little bit later. I've put the brolly in. It would be my least favourite of all the modifiers, however I have used it in conjunction with gels and it works really, really well, so that's why I've added that in. Softbox is a really, really nice light, but it might not be punchy enough for the kind of stuff if you're doing makeup photography. So my go-to would be the beauty dish, which is the last image, which is very, very beautiful light. So if we move on to the next, I've put the strip boxes in. They are really, really useful if you want to separate. So if you're using something like a beauty dish with a grid, you then might want to light the back of the subject, sort of the side and the back of the subject. So again, just useful just as to separate. I really like the quality of light. Very recently I have purchased, it's the Deep Octa. It's quite small, so it's the same size as my larger beauty dish, and it just means that if you are taking stuff on location, it folds down. The quality of light is really nice, and it is quite similar to a beauty dish, so I definitely recommend it. It's quite new to me, and I do really love it, and it does make travelling a lot easier, because obviously if the beauty dishes don't collapse down and they're quite big, and you do need quite a big car to cart them around. I've put different colour gels. I do tend to use quite a lot of gels in the college stuff, so again we'll go on to that a little bit later on.
Do you have a preferred size of beauty dish, Deb?
Depends what I'm shooting, because I've got the 70, and I think that's a silver, and it's really nice and specular light, but the model has to have good skin for that. I do also use it in conjunction with and I don't know what it's called, it's like a diffuser sock that goes over the top. I do use those quite a lot, and that would be just a judgment call on what their skin's like. If they have quite heavy pores, I'd definitely pop that on top, because otherwise it's not going to look as nice. So yeah, and I do have the 44 as well. So it depends on the skin. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, the type of work that I do, and obviously if this is something that you want to get into, you don't get much time with them. You tend to, the students come to you with a mood board, and you have a 15-minute slot, if that, with each student from mood board to end shot. So it's really important to learn to interpret a brief, and for the students to understand how to convey the brief to you as well. What I have found quite useful is, and I think it's something that's sponsored by you guys, there's a, it's just a lighting diagram, which is Chloe Jasmine. She's the model on it, and it's something, I think it's Photographer Academy have sponsored it, Flash Centre, and probably numerous other companies. But it just shows the different types of lighting, and I think that's really important when I go and speak to the students. When I do my presentation, before we start the sessions, I go through the types of lighting, and I always ask them to maybe pop a little picture of the type of lighting that they're looking for, so they understand what it is. Because if we move on to the next slide, you'll understand why I need to know. So this is one client who said, I want a white background studio shot. Now, I hadn't seen this image. This isn't a white background studio shot, but this is how she explained it to me. So this was the image she had, which obviously is nothing like the image that white background studio shot gives to me. So if we move on to the next image, onto the next slide. This was the mood board that she'd given, which obviously gives really good direction for hair, makeup, lips, sort of lip art, clothing, etc. And right in the middle is the picture that she wanted to convey. Now, bear in mind this was shot just on a white last light highlight background. So if we move on to the next slide, this shows how we interpreted it. I used smoke layers and all kinds of things, and she wanted it to be quite soft and quite ethereal, but obviously keeping the texture of the hair, because you don't want to ruin that, because it was for a hair shoot. But I think it's really important for the person conveying to know how to explain, but also for you to understand how to interpret the brief. What I have found is, if we move on to the next slide, okay, mood boards, really useful. Not every student will come with a mood board. They should. Very, very helpful if they do, because it helps you to interpret in that very quick time. And also Pinterest. Pinterest is brilliant. It's just a free app. I think you can do it on the web as well. So this is an example of a brief that did work, so I understood what she was looking for. What I would also say, if you're working with students, is don't copy images, and encourage them not to copy makeup styles, because if they're out there, somebody's already done that. So you don't want to be, as a photographer, you don't want to be associated with work that's already out there. So you just need to tell them to kind of put something together that's their own voice, and this is what we did with this shoot. So obviously she gave me an idea of what she wanted makeup wise, and we talked about the options on backgrounds and things like that, and that's how we came up with that theme. If you ask before you start, if you ask what room you're going to be taking the photos in, it's quite important. And again, if we move on to the next slide, hopefully that will be in the correct format. So if you are shooting something that's really low key, you don't want too much ambient light in. Make sure that there's blackout blinds. I do quite a lot of mixed light shoots, so you definitely don't want any ambient light coming in. White walls, ceilings, there's a consideration of light bounce. When we first put our studio together, and we had to do it really, really quickly for the students. I'd still got pink walls, and I got a sort of pink halo down the wedding dresses that was bouncing off the walls, although she wasn't close to the wall. You can get light contamination, so that's really important. But what you can do, if you've not taken, obviously you probably can't take polyboards and things like that into college, but you do tend to find that they might have a flip chart or a mobile whiteboard, and you can just pop something in the way, clip on some fabric, so just to sort of change the, so you're avoiding contamination, and you can use it as a reflector. So if we move on to the next one. So I've put be reactive, and this is because you've not got much time with the students, and I guess this will be the same in most colleges, because they're going to have a large volume of students to get through within the day. You need to really know your subject and really understand your lighting, so you can be reactive to each student without having to think. So that's just really practice. So be inspired and practice new things. I've put a slide about health and safety. Working in colleges, very, very important. So you've got to, one thing I've forgotten to put is pat testing. They will definitely request you to pat test all your kit. And then I've put be mindful of cables and tripod stands. It's just common sense, but just make sure that everything's taped down as much as possible. If you've got the cable, I don't know whether they're called cable tidies, but the rubber panels that you can put over the cables, that's even better. I've had issues where I've had to work with students with photosensitivity, with photosensitive epilepsy. In fact, I was working with somebody this week who suffers from photosensitive epilepsy. So you do need to be mindful of that. You definitely need to, if whatever you're doing, you just need to make sure. I just slowed everything down, really slowed everything down for that person. And again, learners with disabilities, you just need to be mindful that there's nothing that can cause any risk to the learners. Okay. And then if we move on to the next one. So working with the colleges can lead on to other opportunities, because as you're working with the colleges, you're building up your portfolio and you're building up your contacts. If you do just normal portraiture, that's something that you could do. I've had people ask me if I can do weddings off the back of that. I don't do weddings, but it's something that people do ask. So there are many different opportunities that could arise from working with the colleges. For me, it's the networking and building up my professional portfolio. I would always encourage the students to work with the best models that are available to them, not just because obviously as a photographer you do want to have the best within your portfolio, but also for them, they're working in a really in an environment that's really competitive. So to give them the best chance once they leave college, it's ideal really for them to have the best models available to them. So they can look on, I think there's various model sites, there's Model Mayhem, Purple Port, which I've not used myself, but I've certainly used Model Mayhem, and just look out for the best models that they can. So I've also put that if you're working in the commercial world, this type of work gives you really good experience of working to a brief and working under very tight time constraints, and experience of working to a mood board. So I'd say that it's good if you want to move into the commercial world. It's very good training for you, and as you're working, you'll build up a pretty solid understanding of a variety of lighting styles, because each student will want something different. So yeah, it's very important. I am very much a geek when it comes to makeup and hair. I have many books, and I think it's important to have a passion for your subject. I was saying to Jay, I was a little bit nervous before we started this, and I was looking through some hair magazines before you all came online. So it's just understanding the area of the work that you're working in, so having that passion, getting used to seeing images and how other photographers portray makeup photography, hair photography, fashion photography, understanding what magazines are looking for, because one of the things that you could do with the portfolio that you built through the college is perhaps send that off to magazines. So it's always good to have some published work. So, but it's researching those areas and making sure that maybe towards the end of the session, once you know you've got the shot for the student, you can have a little play just at the end, just to perhaps get some publishable work. The students will tend to favour not flat lit, but certainly showing all of their makeup or all of their hair. But there's nothing to say that at the end of the session you can't just spend, once you know you've got the shot and you know they're going to be happy with it, that you can't spend a little bit of time just doing something a little bit different, and just say to them, are you okay if we just do something a little bit different this time? So I've put these are some of the images that I've created with the colleges. The first top left image is sort of more of a hair shoot, as you can tell by the lighting. So I would use either a reflector or a snoot just to light that little bit of hair, and then I'd probably have two backlights as well, and almost certainly I lit that with the smaller beauty dish. The second image along, I believe, it's a makeup shot, but I believe that I shot that just with a snoot and then a hair light from behind. This was the theme of the makeup shoot was based on a particular makeup artist, and that was definitely the type of lighting that she was looking for the shoot. Third image along, that's just showing you, perhaps can't see it ever so well, but I've just using a standard background support system, I've just used, it's a roll of organza, and then with a light behind it. So it just gives you a different texture, just different backgrounds, so you're giving something a little bit different to each student. The next image, I think I would say that that's a beauty dish and a rim light behind, and then there's a hair light as well, and that was it. Although it was a makeup shoot, it was a collaboration between the hair students and the makeup students, so it was important to light both. The image with the blue hair, that one is a hair shoot, which was one that I did use the umbrellas to gel. There's a hair light as well, and obviously I'm pretty certain that's a small beauty dish, but yeah, definitely using two umbrellas with the gels and then bouncing them back in, and that worked quite effectively. The stylist that I was working with, he wanted something to sort of look a little bit like Northern Lights. That was his theme originally, but this was where we ended up as a sort of theme for the splitting the two lighting, because the hair was either orange or blue, so we thought this was a good way to sort of interpret that. The image in the middle is one that I took actually quite a while ago, and this was makeup students' work, but this was total look. So it's more themed, it's more cinematic, and this was taken at a place, it's actually Barton's Buses, and they still have a offices near, well, in fact it's opposite the college, and we just rent from there, we rent for the day, and they have some vintage cars, so we sort of mix between buses and cars. But it's nice to just give something a little bit different, because I'd say when people are taking their portfolio out, you don't want to see just a series of headshots. You need to see something a little bit different and something with a bit more of a narrative. And then if we move on to the last image on this page, this, as you can tell by the image, is specifically a hair shoot. There is makeup involved, there always is, but that was lit and the consideration was to light the hair. Okay.
We've had a couple of questions. I hung on to one when you mentioned the umbrellas earlier and about gelling the umbrellas, and we've had a couple of follow-ups now. So firstly, when you're gelling the umbrella, just explain where the gel is and how you're doing it with an umbrella, because somebody meant, obviously asked about the fact that there's a, that you've got the shaft through the umbrella. So what's the best way to gel an umbrella?
I actually use, because I've got some Bowens kit, not a lot, but I believe you can do the same with the Ellen Crombs as well. Put the reflector, and some of the reflectors you can get a separate, it's got like a little attachment that you can put the shaft of the umbrella through, so then you can pop the gel on the reflector. So obviously it's not, because I have melted a couple in the past. So yeah, not the best thing to do, but I have learnt from that. So just having that there, and obviously it sort of contains the spill, so you're just using the gel area. But certainly works with the Bowens. I'd need to check with the Ellen Crom. I'm pretty sure you could. So yeah, so I can probably send a picture of the setup if that would be useful to anybody who's...
Oh, that'd be great. If you send that over, then we can just post it on the Facebook page. That'd be brilliant. Perfect. So the other question then was, is it a reflective umbrella or a shoot-through? Or...
that day, I've used both. That was reflective.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's answered those.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I've put some sort of, I suppose, more high key. So this is again stuff that I do for the college. The picture left and right, obviously they're of the same theme, same model, but completely different look. The image number 2 on the top left is more of a hair shoot. So that's like a sort of vintage hair shoot. And then I've included a makeup shoot, but obviously a makeup shoot with a slight twist in that I do work with quite a few gentlemen modelling as well. So yeah, and that the person that was styling it wanted to involve it's like a dripping gold, I suppose, with the jewellery. We knew about the jewellery before the shoot, so I made a custom background, and my makeup artist, hairstylist that I work with, and I made some custom tiers, so that's our work. But it's sort of thinking ahead and thinking about how you can adapt the shoot. This one wasn't a college shoot. It's something that we've done outside college, but it was with one of the makeup artists that was one of the students, so it's work that we've sort of developed from there. The picture on the left, which I suppose is more of a fashion shot. Now, what I used on that one, and again it's something that you can take into the colleges, standard background support system and just a load of different colour netting, and I just clipped it on, so it sort of gave that rainbow effect. Pretty inexpensive. Quite a lot of the fabric companies or fabric shops will have sales on and get rid of different colours. There was a sale on, and I just grabbed what was available, and obviously the sort of pastel look worked really well. And then the image, which is a kind of swan based, I used just it's just like a plastic background and smoke. But what I would say is check, if you're working within a college, that the smoke machine isn't going to set off any. Generally it's a different type of substance, and it doesn't tend to set them off, but it's definitely worth checking before you empty the college. Okay. Right, I've put some white background images on. I don't tend to shoot quite so many on the white background, just some of the students like it, but a lot of the time, certainly the type of stuff that I'm doing with the college, it's quite avant-garde, a lot of the looks, so they tend to want the darker backgrounds. That's what they tend to favour, and I do personally just prefer a variety of backgrounds. but I have put some in for you. Yeah, it wouldn't be my favourite, but I've popped them in anyway. It can be quite sort of impactful images, so it's definitely worth considering, and all of those were shot using the highlight background. So that's those. Now, one of the areas that I do work with within the college, and this was why the lecturer that I started working with specifically wanted a female photographer, just because of the body art element. And as you can see, there's a variety of body art within there. I've put just a little note about the pop art image. The makeup artist made the photo frames, so it's just an interesting twist. I thought that was really good. Image in the middle is one that I did, which was UV with one of the students, and I've made it sort of into a more of a pattern, I suppose. Image on the top right, standard body art. So that's the type of thing that they would tend to produce within the college. Again, the one on the left, what I've put, the difference between the two, which you can probably see from the images, image top right is more of a kind of matte finish body art paint, and the image on the bottom left is more of a glossy. And I would say that when you're talking to the students, they need to be aware of how the gloss will react to the lighting modifiers. So again, you'd probably need a model with really, really good skin. And if they haven't got such good skin, I'd probably suggest that they might want to go the matte route. Image in the middle is more of a kind of texture. I can't remember what the exact theme was, but I think it was creatures. It was sort of a sci-fi creature type based thing. They don't want the back in shadow because they want to show the shadow detail, so I used Beauty Dish, which you can probably work out, coming from the left-hand side of the subject, and then I used the strip box, which I was talking about earlier, just so you've got enough light to light all the way down the back, so you can see the texture, so you've got shadows and light, but enough to sort of, you can see it, but it shows that there is texture there rather than just being evenly lit, really flat lit. And then the image on the right, which hasn't been retouched at all, so I do apologise. That one is just showing, I think that was a reflector, just a bare reflector, as you can see from the hard shadow, and then just a normal, probably my triflector, but probably just one underneath, just bouncing a little bit of light back so it's not too hard, and then the two strip lights either side to light the hair, because the hair was as important to that shoot as the face, because without the hair she was just kind of a little bit of a floating head almost, so just to give that separation. Next shot is a kind of locations that we might go to with the students, and just using different textures. Obviously now the image at the top you can now create using the Luster Lights urban range. That was actually taken in the location that you can see below, and the location on the right, which is a sort of wedding shoot, is a pub near us that was a church, so it's a converted church. Since shooting there and shooting that particular image, they've now decided with health and safety that we can't shoot on the stairs, which is unfortunate, but at least we had the option to do that. But it has got amazing stained glass windows, and you do tend to find that if the colleges ask, quite a lot of places will let you go for free. So it's just sort of to bear in mind that you can find places, but it's probably easier for the college to make those negotiations. Okay, so these are some of the type of shots that I would take in those kind of locations, and I've also added on the top right, that's just a custom background that I made, and it's just it's glitter and a glass, well, sort of PVC sheet, and then I lit it from behind to give it that sort of halo effect. But it's just always to have something a little bit different for the students. I have got quite a big car, and we do take a van as well from time to time, so I can take little bits of props with me. Again, just different ideas. The top right image I have included, which was some of the work that we did with students, and they did want the model to be in the water. She is in the water. There are other shoots that we've done, but we tend to, that was more for the sort of fashion students than probably the makeup students. So, but yeah. Okay. Bottom right, oh sorry, if we go back,
sorry.
go back one, Jay.
There you go.
Sorry. Bottom right, that's just a mat. It's always good to kind of just maybe throw some fabric in a bag or a mat or anything like that, just to give a different look, because they might not want them sitting up all the time. So it's just little ideas of what you can use just to give a different look. And then if we move on to the next one, just some dried moss, but it just made it a slightly more interesting shot. So she wanted a very sort of fairy tale theme, and I thought with the green of the moss and the hair, it just kind of worked. It gave it a nice theme, and it very much, and I can still use it and use it and use it for other things. In fact, I think we've made some headdresses out of some of that. So that's that. Okay, if we move on to the next one. As well as doing beauty makeup, we also, quite a lot of the courses will have special effects as part of the criteria for the course. So again, I've just built up little bits of props. The pictures that you can see, so top left, top right and bottom left, were all taken at the mill, and I've just used gels and smoke and bits of old mannequins and things. So it's just kind of building up little props and things just to make it a bit more interesting for the students, and to, I suppose, to give it a bit of a narrative. The pictures, the three at the bottom, left picture, she just wanted a very plain image, so that was just taken on using the grey bottle top. And again, the middle image using the grey bottle top, but what we did with this one was use the beauty dish with the grid. I think it was the 44 beauty dish with the grid, just to really channel the light, because the model was wearing jeans and she didn't want to show that he was wearing jeans. So it's just kind of channeling the light into the areas that she wanted to show, and it just gives that kind of contrast and lights and shadows, especially for special effects. You want to show the work. The picture, which is kind of Lord of the Rings inspired, which is on the right, that was just shot. There's a tiny little park just across the road from the college. We just nipped over. The weather was good. I always do take battery lights, but again, you could use reflectors and the ambient light. As Jay will probably agree, that's not my thing, but I'm a bit scared of that. So I tend to sort of go down the studio lighting route, and taking it outside, it's just the same, but obviously you're outside. So, and one of the things that I've been experimenting with, and with the colleges as well, is working with UV. Now, you definitely have to consider the room when working with UV, because any ambient light in the shot just isn't going to work. I tend to use, at one of the colleges, they've got a drama room which is just completely blacked out. There's no windows, and they've painted the walls and the floor and the ceiling, everything's black, which sounds a bit grim, but it works perfectly for this type of shot. If you haven't, if there's somewhere, perhaps if the college has got a stage, I've also shot backstage, because they tend to have really big black curtains, so again, there's no ambient light behind there. I really like using the UV, and the students tend to really enjoy it as well, because it just gives them something a bit different in the portfolio. So I don't know if they've got any, I was just going to move on to retouching, just touch on it really. I didn't know whether we've got any questions before we do.
We do have some questions, Deb, so actually it's probably a
Yeah.
good time that let's catch up on a few of these. Let me just, they're not in any particular order, sorry, so let me have a look.
Okay.
Uh, right, so okay, straight off the bat, you referred to
Yeah.
polyboards. Where's the best place to get polyboards from, Deb?
B&Q or anywhere. What you do need, they tend to be white, or you can get the ones that are white with like little, they're kind of like little dark balls within them as well. But if you use a water-based paint, which is what I've used in the past, don't use anything else because it will melt. Paint one side black, paint one side white, and you've got a reflector, and then obviously just black to take any light out that you don't want. You can get stands. I think I got mine off the internet. You'd have to have a quick search. I'll see if I can dig out where we got ours from. But yeah, it just makes life a lot easier if you can't contain the light. But one thing I have used in the past is the big mount boards that they use to mount photos. Obviously you can get those in all different colours, and just to take a couple of those, if you're only doing headshots, they work equally as well.
Yeah, brilliant. We recently bought some, exactly
Yeah.
what you just said, from B&Q polyboards, and we painted them black and white.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Best place.
Yeah.
This was quite an interesting question, Deb. So how do you mentioned a couple of times, obviously the students don't have a lot of money, so how do you make the work as profitable as possible, or you sort of rely on it being a portfolio builder and then looking for the more commercial clients to earn your money from?
Because there's a lot of students, it is profitable to do, so I wouldn't do it if it wasn't profitable in some way. There is the element of building up the portfolio, which is important to me, but because you're working with a lot of students, it does bring a certain amount in, which is good. Where was I going to go from there? Hang on a second. Ask the question again and I'm sure it will remind me. You there, Jay?
Oh, sorry, I was muted, sorry. You've answered part of the question, because you said, obviously, that there's a lot of students, so that obviously becomes
profitable. I know what I was going to say. No, I know where I was going.
Okay.
What I would advise is, and this was a mistake that I made, so I definitely wouldn't advise you to make this mistake, is don't offer the service with retouching or any kind of editing. And it's two reasons. One is it doesn't show the student's work, it shows your work, and that's not right. If they're going out, they need to be shown their work. And also, if you're spending all the time editing them, it's not profitable. So you just need to be shooting it, and that's why I said the importance of a light meter is get it right in camera. And then it might just be a little bit in Lightroom, tiny bit of a conversion, and then straight out to them. And I send the stuff straight onto Dropbox to them.
Brilliant. You talked earlier on about that you, and I think you said it was your hairstylist or your makeup artist, made those gold teardrops. What were they made with, Deb?
They're just made with glue, hot glue gun, and then we sprayed them.
Brilliant. Simple as that. Excellent.
And then just attach them with the type of glue that you'd use for just attaching eyelashes, so just like a standard eyelash glue.
Brilliant. We've just had a flurry of questions with regards to the UV images that you just shared. No, sorry, I'm going to jump back before we do that. Sorry, I missed one. Sorry. How do you control you might, actually, John has mentioned that you might have answered this already, but we just wanted to check. How do you control the light from the beauty dish, stopping it affecting the background? I think that you mentioned that you use a grid. Do you use the grid all the time?
I don't use the grid all the time, but I don't tend to have the subject that close to the background.
Perfect.
So then it's not spilling on it.
So I think they might have just missed. So back onto the UV light ones now. Sorry. Sorry. Did you mention how you were lighting? Is it just a standard black light you're using for the UV? What are you using then?
I'd like to say that I'm using Broncolor's adapter, but I'm not. What I do use, they're just UV cannons. So you can get they're like a disco attachment, I suppose. So I'd use those, but I will also use them with mix light, which I think I touched on earlier. So I might use them with gels as well. But you can see whether we can, I don't know whether we can whiz back to the UV
Sure,
slide
2
or
seconds.
whether
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. So the image on the left, the college had said I'd taken one UV cannon, and the college said, "Oh yeah, we've got those," but they hadn't. What they actually had was just LED panels, which don't work because they're really limited light-wise. So that was just shot with one UV cannon. The other images are probably shot with 2, and then gels, and it's just complementary colours to the look, I guess.
Okay. Somebody's asked, Alfred, just to make it clear again, you're referring to a UV cannon, so is it just like a stand? Just explain to them what a UV cannon is, though.
Oh yeah. It's if you do a search for UV cannon, it would tend to come up as something that you'd use for a disco. If you're using things for a nightclub, it's that sort of thing. So it's not a photography product per se. It's it's more for sort of discos. But I just thought it gave a really nice effect.
Is it relatively inexpensive, or?
Probably off the top of my head about £100.
Okay, brilliant.
Per cannon.
Excellent.
So not ever so expensive.
So last question for a minute. So you were talking about obviously working with the colleges. Do you set the rate, or do the college set the rate for what the students pay?
I set the rate with 2 of the colleges. The college sets the rate with the other one, but it's about the same anyway. It's just for one college, they only, I just shoot and it goes to Dropbox. For the other college, they want prints and also the images to Dropbox. So it depends. So we set the fee for that one because obviously there's a cost incurred with the printing that's over and above just shooting. So.
Excellent. So you wanted to touch briefly on retouching. I know we're getting close to 8 o'clock, but I'm happy to stay with us as long as you're happy to stay with us. So, so if you want to just touch on that, and you just ask me to move the slides on when you're ready, Dev.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sort of, well, I love retouching, so but it's something that you could either learn to do, or you could send it off. There's quite a lot of places. If you look on Facebook, there's quite a lot of groups where people will retouch your work to build up their portfolio, so it's something that people can help each other out with. I would say that generally when you're doing the makeup photography, there is an opportunity to pop quite a few of the images within your video, but you don't want to, if you can see the picture that's shown at the moment, obviously the image on the left isn't quite as powerful as the image on the right. Correcting teeth, just cleaning up lines and things like that. They're going to do the best that they can on the day. However, just that little bit of polish just makes the difference between what you do and what you don't want to put in your portfolio. So I would say that for me, retouching is really important, and particularly the stuff that I'm doing for the hair work, it's probably even more important. So for this image, there's quite a lot going off. This was actually shot for a hair competition. So obviously the main focus is the hair. However, there is a makeup artist involved in the team, so you want the makeup to look the best that they can. If you look at the image on the left, you can see that there's quite a lot. She's obviously been out in the sun a little bit, and you can see tan lines and things like that. So you just need to even those out. So that's just showing what can be achieved with retouching. And again, it's something I definitely say, have a look on Facebook, and I'll find the links because there are 2 really good groups where people will retouch for free. So because it's building their portfolio up, and there's some really, really good retouchers. What's important when you're sending, if you look at the picture that's just displayed, when you're sending stuff off to competitions or to be published, or if it's a photography competition, etc., you really need to just retain the quality of the skin and the quality of the, obviously she has very minimal pores, but just see that she does have skin texture, so you don't want to be losing that. So you couldn't put it into, there's quite a lot of plugins available within photography, but they kind of make everything look really soft. And if you're wanting to get stuff published, they're not going to publish if it looks really soft. Certainly within this area. That just shows you, this was a retouch that I did, this was for a nail artist, and obviously there's makeup involved as well, but you can just see it's very subtle, but it's just making sure that everything looks clean and tidy. So gaps in the hair, making sure that the point of the makeup is nice and tidy, eyebrows, lips, etc., and where she's pushing into the skin, just taking out any shadows there. So it's just making everything look very attractive, but not retouched, not sort of over, so you can tell that the work's been done. This one is some retouching that I did and I shot for a hairstylist. So what I was demonstrating with this one for you is the use of the hair light, so you've got that information to start with, so you've got your shadows and highlights within the hair, and then you can build on that, and then it's just sort of making sure that everything looks really tidy and how the hairstylist wants it to look, because you will get random stray hairs. As much as they really put the effort in beforehand, there will be stray hairs because that's the nature of hair. Okay. And then, yeah, I've just put any more questions.
We have a few. We have a couple. So, well, brilliant. We've answered quite a lot. So I did hang on to a few, but thank you. But before we even do the questions, thank you. Loads of that have come through on the question. So obviously you've shared loads tonight, which is fantastic. And obviously I know it's easy for me to say, but because I've known you for a long time now, but I love the journey, and it's been great to see the progression, and now seeing the work. I mean, I remember the early days. I love it, absolutely love it. So thank you. So thank you. Brilliant. So
thank you.
So a couple of people said about with regards to the UV Canon, they're around about £90. So that's quite reasonable. Somebody's recommended a place called gearformusic.com, but he said if you just Google it, you get it, but around £90. A few people chipped that up, so fairly reasonable, especially for the effects. Brilliant. Okay, so let's again, only a few left, but not in any particular order. Somebody asked quite early on, which was quite nice. With you actually, because we referred to the fact that a long time ago now you were one of our apprentices. Well, how did you learn? What did you get the most out of working with us on that? Because somebody's at the moment going through one of our mentoring programs. So it's a genuine question. What's the best advice you can give them from obviously the time that they spent with us?
Okay, I think it was, for me, and Jay will probably agree with this, it was really quite life-changing for me. I was super shy. I've always been quite a shy person, but it really helped, and it really made me consider everything about what I was doing within the photography, and it gave me a bit of a kick up the backside, really. Yeah, I just really enjoyed the journey, everything about it, and it made me really sort of analyse every part of my business and every part of me, I suppose, as well, because it's much more than just the photography aspect. But yeah, I loved the journey. It's really good. I'm really grateful.
The change is phenomenal, and it is. But you worked hard, but yeah, the difference. It's great. I think, to be honest, guys, if you are, well, hopefully most of you are Academy members. If you go and check out any of the Apprentice series, really, everybody went through a journey. Just pick the journey that suits your type of photography. But I think what's great now is in the next few months that if you have gone back and seen some of Deborah's films when she was one of our apprentices, and it's a long time ago, you've built your business now and your photography is fantastic, and you're already doing amazing photography. But seeing the films that the boys are now editing, of working with you, recently. It'll be great when we've got that live within the next couple of months that they can go and see who you were and who you are now. But the photography hasn't changed, but you've changed, and definitely for the stronger, which is great. A couple of people have asked just a couple of things just to bring it to remind us of. Somebody asked if you can remind us the name of the cleaner for the highlight. You mentioned a particular cleaning product that was brilliant.
Yes. Hang on, I'm going to go back to it. It's in my notes. It is. Hang on, where are we? Get to the right slide, which I've probably moved somewhere else. It's Dr. Power. Where are we?
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, Dr. Power Magic Eraser.
Brilliant.
It's really, really cheap. I think they're probably about £7 and it'll last for ages.
Excellent.
But they really do work, because I've had black body art on my white background, on the back of my white background, and it came off perfectly. So it does really work. Some of the things, because it was the makeup artist, well, the model stepped back and there was a big splodge of black on my highlight background, so we got it off as best we could and then just made sure that we didn't use that area, that the model covered that area, got it back, cleaned it up, perfect. And again with the train, absolutely perfect, because it's not it doesn't sort of damage it. I wouldn't use a bleach or anything like that because it's going to damage it, whereas that it just takes the mark out but leaves everything else intact. It's brilliant.
I'll be sharing that with Sam and the boys tomorrow, because Sam found something. Sam found something that was really good, but I can't remember what it was. But I'll be telling it because we're always cleaning our highlights and our trains, so that'll be on the purchase list tomorrow, definitely. You mentioned that with one of the colleges, one of the things is that the images were just Dropbox to the client. Are you providing them with a JPEG, or are you providing them with a raw image?
JPEG.
JPEG, brilliant. Okay.
Do you? Otherwise, when you're loading them up, it would take days and days. So no, it just makes more sense. Yeah.
Are you ever using the black bottle top cover for the highlight at all?
I do, yes. I tend to use that more for special effects again. Just they tend to favour it more for the special effects. I'm trying to think whether I used it this year. Probably not so much, because I've got the urban backgrounds. I've not used the black as much. I've used the grey because obviously if you take the subject further away from the grey, you can get to black.
Sure.
So I'd say if you spend your money, spend it on a grey.
What we've done occasionally, but I've noticed, and we noticed actually with the brand new highlights, you can't do it. Our highlights are a couple of years old now, and they actually have a black on the reverse. Now it's a little bit shiny, but we've used it as a black background quite successfully. But obviously just experiment with it first, so it saves you actually buying maybe a bottle top. But if you buy yourself a new highlight, Last Light have decided to put a seam through it now, so just be aware of that. Ours are seamless, but the new ones have do have a seam, so it does show up in the photographs. And obviously, sorry, you and somebody just checked, but I think we showed it earlier. They were asking, is there a grey bottle top? There is, isn't there? That's what you showed earlier.
There is.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, the grey bottle top's really good, because you can go, if you're quite close to the background, it can be quite a light grey, and obviously the further you take the light away and the smaller the modifier you use, you can get it to black.
Perfect.
So it's really good.
I know we mentioned the the lenses that you preferred earlier on. In terms of choice, do you prefer a fast prime or a fast zoom?
I tend to use, because I don't get much time with them, I tend to use a zoom.
Yeah.
I've got the L series just because the quality is very, very beautiful. But yeah, I do use the macro, which is a prime, and that's 100mm. But I tend to use the 24 to 70 for most of the stuff, because then you can get quite close to your subject, but not too close, and you sort of have that. You can speak quite softly to them, because they tend to be quite nervous. They're not models, a lot of them. They're their friends, so to have that kind of, to be nice and close to them is quite nice, and then you can zoom in and out. But you do have to be mindful of distortion, so don't zoom all the way out because you will start distorting features.
Brilliant. Do you, and actually we've got to the last question now, Deb, do you find that so the social, actually not finding, not, I'll reword it, does social media play much of a part in you getting your work, or are you going out there and doing the legwork yourself?
It does now, actually. Yeah, it does. I've never been ever so good with social media, but I decided back end of last year that I really ought to do something with it. And in terms of networking, it's working really, really well for me, and I've got some paid work off the back of it, which is great for makeup companies and for hairstylists. So yeah, it's good.
I think social media is just too important in any area of photography now to ignore, and I think you know, especially when you have a very distinctive style like yourself, you can't really afford to ignore Instagram, but you know, Facebook without a doubt you've got to do, and Twitter, and just, you know, the more people that see your images, and make sure that whatever you're posting can be linked back to you, whether it's a link to your website or just, you know, that obviously don't just put a picture, make sure everything you've got up there is brilliant. Somebody's just crept through with a question, so I will ask it, and then we'll love you and leave you. On the shots that you showed us, how long on average do you take to create the look on the day and shoot it? And how many shots per student do they normally have? That's a sort of two-pronged question there for you.
The students with me, because of the volume of students that they have at the college, get about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what whether they've got, because one of the days that we do, they have a show in the evening, so they probably only get 10 minutes for that one. But the prep work, if they let me know in advance, I will bring props. I'll potentially make little bits and pieces for it as well, because me and my friend really quite enjoy making craft type stuff. So there might be quite a lot of preparation. If they're wanting to shoot UV, I definitely need to know in advance, because obviously I need to take that with me. But generally speaking, quite a lot of them, they won't get in touch beforehand. They won't even have done their mood board before the day. So it's sort of relying on that information then, and you've got 10 minutes or 15 minutes to shoot. But that includes setting up. So if the person before has wanted something with a gel with a highlight, and then they want something with a different background, you either need it set up in advance so you can just move between the two, or it's going to encroach on their time. So. Brilliant.
And roughly how many shots would you say they get in their 15 minutes or 10 minutes?
It depends. If they've got a model that is happy to move and happy to be directed, or is happy to move themselves, they'll probably get a little bit more out of it. But I'd say they're probably going to get about 25 plus, depending. So yeah, there's no point sort of rattling through and taking too many, but try and get different angles and things like that. So I tend to sort of work from the side of the look, and if the makeup doesn't balance, or if it's uneven, you might want to shoot one side and not the other, and things like that. So it's just kind of making that judgment on the day. The makeup artist might say, this is the look I want, and that's all they want. So there's no point overshooting it at all. You might want to suggest different looks. But yeah, it depends. I try to be as even as I can with each student, just sort of for fairness. So yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, that's the last of the questions. Thank you so much for your time. Loads of thanks came through on the question panel. Really enjoyed the session. Really food for thought, creative ideas, loved the images, and loved how much you shared. So from everybody listening, thank you, and obviously from me and the guys here, thank you. So really, I hope you weren't too nervous, and sorry about the techie glitch, but we worked past that. Anyway. So
We'll work on one for next time. I'll work out why. It bizarrely worked last time, didn't it?
absolutely, yeah. But I mean, what's great, and some people, you know, what we've done with the follow-on sort of webinars is we can look at, maybe next time we can look at specifically lighting for makeup or lighting for hair and things like that.
Yeah,
We can do some more dedicated things and also make them a bit more Q&A. So yeah, we'll definitely get the films up. That they're happening within the next couple of months now, so people can start, you know, seeing the sessions live with you, and then following that we can schedule another webinar. I'd love to have you back, and then we can talk some more at depth things. Absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that.